Hi, and welcome back to Big Red's Cooking. I'm Darcy, aka Big Red, and this is part 2 in my series around making tomato sauce. So in the first part of this video, what I did was I showed you how to peel the tomato, and we started by coring that top out, docking the bottom, then we dropped it into that hot boiling water, into an ice bath to stop it, and then that allowed us to peel our tomatoes. We've got this beautiful bowl of tomatoes here now. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make a really basic tomato sauce, which is great for canning. And I'll actually do a third video, and then I'm going to even do an extended cut where it'll all be in one big video on how to take this and turn this into a nice tomato sauce that you can put away in your pantry, and then you'll have it there all winter long. You know, these tomatoes are at their peak freshness right now. They're nice, they're ripe, there's so much flavor. You can almost taste the sun when you're biting into one of these. And I'm really looking forward to having this in my pantry so I can make that great sauce for myself in the middle of the winter. Now, because I have no idea what I'm going to do with this tomato sauce, I'm going to make it very, very neutral. I won't be adding any salt because I have no idea what other ingredients I might add, and I don't want to have any salt in there. I may end up using a very salty ingredient, and having this seasoned could make a very salty sauce. I don't want to add any garlic for the exact same reason, and I'm not even going to add any herbs. Really, I'm going to limit myself to the basic aromatic vegetables of carrot, onion, and celery. Now, our combination of carrot, onion, and celery, in common French terminology for French cooking anyhow, we call it mirepoix. And a mirepoix, by definition, is 50% onion, 25% carrot, and 25% celery, all by weight. Now, the size we cut it will depend on how we're using it. Right? So if we're making a soup, we might cut it really small dice. If I'm going to use it at the base of a turkey or a roast beef, which is going to give me a much more flavorful gravy, I'm going to cut it much larger because it's going to be in the oven for hours and hours, and I don't want it burning up. But it's always in that same basic proportion. Today, however, we're making tomato sauce, and we most commonly think of tomato sauce as Italian cooking. And in the Italian cooking world, the same combination of vegetables is known as sofrito. And sofrito generally, and I may get corrected on this, but from what I understand of it, it's finely diced, and then it's cooked in olive oil, which is the last ingredient I'm going to use today. And it's cooked till a point where it almost starts to caramelize and you start getting some color. So we're going to get a real richness of flavor. Like I say, once that sofrito is caramelized down, what I'll do is I'll add our tomatoes in, and then we'll reduce that down, and that will produce our tomato sauce. And then we'll actually do a third video where I'm going to show you how to can this out, and I'll talk about some things around canning and safety issues when it comes to canning. So we'll just put our tomatoes to the side for now. We're not going to need those for a few moments. And we'll go ahead and we'll get started with our vegetables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some rough prep with this. And I'm actually just going to throw it in the food processor. You know, there's no real need of wasting our time. We're not looking for this to be pretty. Ultimately, in the end, it's all going to get pureed together. I want it just a nice, smooth, neutral sauce. So I'm going to go ahead and get these rough chopped. I'll throw them in the food processor, and then we'll move on over to the stove. So again, you know, as always, I like to start by giving my knife a quick pass on my steel. And of course, we always have to wipe our blade because we want to make sure that we're not getting any metal bits into our food. So of course, just like with all my other videos, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type out a full recipe. I'll give you the actual weights and proportions for this sauce typed up on the website bigredscooking.ca. So I've just given our celery a quick wipe. We don't need to be very, particular about our celery. I just start taking the very bottom end off. And even with the tops, I leave the leaves and things like that there. I want to get rid of those dry little bits at the end. But, the leaves themselves, they're fine. They don't need to come out. So when I gave my carrots a rinse, because anytime I'm going to peel a vegetable, I always want to rinse them still, because if I cut it and there was anything on that outside that I didn't want, it's just going to end up right inside my food. And I tell you, if you've never used one of these are the greatest peelers ever. Go out and buy yourself one. I think this one cost me about $8 at one of the local supply shops in Cornerbrook. But it's sort of the U-shaped peeler. Much easier, much more comfortable to use, and I find just way faster. And I've had this one for years and years, and it's still nice and sharp. As always, I'm saving my compost. Yeah, no need to waste that. This will all become nutrients for future vegetables. So there you go, we have our vegetables all, that's our carrot, our onion, celery, nothing more in there. I just let it go nice and long. So you can see it's a nice sort of fine mince there now. So what we're going to do is we're going to get our stove turned on. And go ahead and add a nice healthy dose of olive oil in there. So we'll just give our olive oil a moment to heat up. And then we'll go ahead and add our vegetable in. You know what? It's only been in here for about 30 seconds. But as that olive oil is cooking those onions and those celery and the carrot and whatnot, I'm already getting that wonderful aroma coming off it. So we're going to let this cook for a few minutes, and then we're going to start adding in our tomatoes. So just for reference, I do have this pot on right now on high heat. And you notice that we're getting some steam coming off our pot. And the reason I have that on a high heat is that I want to be able to eliminate as much water content as possible. Because until all the water has evaporated off, or most of the water has evaporated off, we won't get any real caramelization happening here. All right, so we want to get a little bit of that flavor development, we want to get some coloring going, and we really need to be able to eliminate that water content to be able to do that. So another important consideration when we're doing something like this is the pot itself. I actually have this in a very heavy bottomed pot. It's going to reduce down our likelihood of this burning or sticking because we get a much more even heat transfer going on. You know, so as best as possible, you know what, I got lucky with this one. I found it very cheap, but you know, getting a nice big thick bottom pot like this is a very handy thing to have around if you plan on making lots of sauces. And it's a good investment. I've had this one for about 5 years now, and it's still just like brand new. And by taking good care of it, it will last me a lifetime. So what I've got done here now, and it might be a little difficult to see through the steam, is I actually created a little bit of a center hole. And that's going to allow some of that liquid to sort of drain down and evaporate off a little bit faster. Okay, so we can see that it's starting to get nice and dry in here now. And it's actually a little dry for my liking, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and add a little bit extra olive oil in here. So I can really, what I want to be able to do is I want to hear that sizzle. I want to hear those things frying. So I'm starting to see some coloring on my bottom here now, which I'm really what I wanted to be able to see. We basically have eliminated all the water content from this now, or most of it. Oh, smells so wonderful. Okay, so if we look, we can see a bit of coloring going on here now. We've definitely got some coloring going, which is what I really want. So at this point, I can start adding these tomatoes in. What I'm going to do is, as I put them in, I'm just going to give them a little squeeze and help them to break down some. That's going to help release some of those juices. And I'm going to reduce my temperature down now to a medium low. I want this to really cook out nice and slow. So I'm just going to go ahead and very carefully add the rest of these in. There's a lot of liquid at the bottom of this as they've drained out. So I'm going to go ahead and put a lid on this. And we're just going to let this simmer out now. And we'll check on this occasionally as we sort of go through. So one thing you probably have noticed as well is I didn't just sort of wait and stand around and stir up my pot while my sofrito was cooking down. I took a few moments, I cleaned up my area, my carrots, my celery are already in my fridge, the extra onions are back out in my pantry. You know, again, if you've been watching my videos, one of the things you would have heard me say before, C-A-Y-G, clean as you go. It's just going to make your job so much easier and reduce down how much time you spend on some of these cooking projects. So again, I'm going to keep on cleaning and we'll just sort of keep on watching on our sauce. This is going to take probably an hour to an hour and a half for sure for those tomatoes to be able to cook down, release all that flavor, break themselves down, things like that. Okay, so our sauce has been simmering away quite nicely now for a while. I've actually got this on the lowest heat possible and I've just got a really nice gentle simmer, which is exactly what I want. And with this nice heavy bottom pot, I have no worries about it burning on the bottom at all. So we're just going to give this a little quick stir here. And again, good thing to do. And what I want to be able to do is I'm going to give this a little bit of a help. So I'm going to take my potato masher and I'm just going to start to mash down some of these tomatoes in here. What I will end up doing at the very end, once I'm happy with how everything is cooked, is I'm actually going to take my immersion blender and I'm going to throw it in there and let it sort of finish off and try and smooth it out a little bit more. So what this is going to do is it's going to give the equipment a little bit of a helping hand, so to speak, so that it doesn't have to puree as big of a chunk. And that will make that job that much easier. So I'm just going to go ahead and have a little taste on this right now, just get a sense of where we are in terms of our flavor development. Right, and the thing is with tomato sauce, as we cook it out, it tends to get a little bit smoother, loses some of its acidity and things like that, and that's what I want. Now, I don't want to overcook this. I don't want to lose that brightness of that tomato flavor, which can happen if we cook this for too long. Really, my goal is just to be able to break these tomatoes down, cook them enough so I can can them safely. And I'll talk more about the precautions from canning in part 3 of this video series. But for now, I just want to get a sense and taste and see how we're doing here. That's got that really nice sort of beautiful tomato sauce. I can get the sense of the carrot and the onion and the celery in there. It doesn't overwhelm or dominate, but it really rounds out that flavor so much and it's going to allow me to make some fantastic sauces down the road. Okay, so our sauce has been simmering for a little bit longer now. And at this point, I'm really happy with where my flavor is. So what I want to be able to do is do the final step before I move on to the canning process. And I'm just going to take my immersion blender here, and I'm just going to pop this in, and I'm going to move it around a little bit, try and break up some of those last final chunks. I don't want it too thick and chunky. You know, I don't mind some of it being left in there because, you know, this is just for me. I'm not making anything fancy here. But I don't want those big chunks left in. So there you go. This is nice and smooth now, and at this point this tomato sauce is largely finished. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide this on over to my other burner, and I'm actually going to set up my canning pot. So in part 3 I'll pick up with this and we'll talk about the canning process a little bit more in that video. So there you see, it's really not that difficult to get a good neutral tomato sauce. So as I was saying, I've got no salt, no herbs in there whatsoever, because I really do want this to be a nice, just sort of blank canvas that's going to allow me to do anything I want with it. If you haven't seen the video yet on peeling the tomatoes and you do want to make this large batch of tomato sauce for yourself, go ahead and check that out, and I'll have a link down below. I'll also be doing another video. There'll be a part C to this where I'm actually going to show the canning process itself. And I will be doing an extended cut that's going to have from the peeling of the tomatoes, the making of the tomato sauce, as well as the canning procedure in a single large video. So if you did like this video, as always, I'm going to ask you to hit like and subscribe. Please share this with your friends and your family. Go ahead and post it on social media. Keep checking back to my website, bigredscooking.ca. You can find me at Instagram under the same name, Big Reds Cooking. I really hope you did enjoy this video. If there's anything else you'd love to see me do videos for in the future, please do not hesitate to comment down below. Drop me an email, send me a message. Even if you've got a carrier pigeon, go ahead and do that. Whatever way of getting a hold of me that works for you. I hope you're really enjoying your time in the kitchen, and I really do hope you're enjoying some good food. But most of all, I hope to see you back here again. Bye for now.